Today we'll be talking about the DVT Flowtron Leg Pump. The DVT Flowtron Leg Pump is a non-invasive prophylactic system for reducing the incidence of deep vein thrombosis. It does an application of external pneumatic compression through using either calf garments or thigh garments. The calf garments and thigh garments do come in two different sizes. You do have 17-inch calf circumference. They are packaged in pairs, one for the left leg, one for the right leg. And then you do have a large size up to 23-inch calf circumference. Next, on the other side, we do have thigh garments, standard size, up to 28-inch thigh circumference, which will wrap around the calf and the thigh. And then you have a large size up to 35-inch thigh circumference, which will also wrap around the calf and the thigh. The pump will provide intermittent cycles of compressed air, which will alternate inflate the single-chambered garments. The compression applied on the extremity increases venous blood flow velocity and stimulates fibrinolysis. The pump will operate on a 60-second automatically timed cycle. The cycle will consist of approximately 12 seconds of inflation of the garment, followed approximately by 48 seconds of deflation. When one garment begins to deflate, approximately 30 seconds after that, the other garment will begin to inflate. This alternation in time cycle will help relax and give the patient's extremity a chance to relieve the pressure and any discomfort if the patient is feeling. Some cautions when using your DVT Flowtron Leg Pump is to make sure that the application of the garment and the connection to the actual pump is essential. The garments should be removed if the patient experiences tinglingness, numbness, or pain. You may not want to use the DVT Flowtron Leg Pump, or it is not recommended for patients that have the following conditions: severe congestive cardiac failure, known or suspected acute deep vein thrombosis, any local conditions in which garments would interfere, for example, gangrene, untreated infected leg wounds, recent skin graft, as well as dermatitis. For initial system setup for your DVT Flowtron Leg Pump, you first do have your grab handle at the top side of the unit where you will grab and maneuver any of your pump at any time. On the bottom side here, you have collapsible hooks for storage as well as for hanging onto the footboard, as the patient usually will be laying in bed as they will be using the DVT Flowtron Leg Pump therapy. To your side of your DVT Flowtron Leg Pump, you will show your female snap lock connection points, as well as your troubleshooting guide if you do receive any alarms on your display, which would be located here on the face of your DVT Flowtron Leg Pump. The display will display any error messages if occurring, as well as the pressure each garment will be inflated to during the inflation cycle. You do have your adjust control knob. The recommended setting is 40 millimeters of mercury. However, if the physician were to recommend something less than 40, you can turn your adjust knob counterclockwise to decrease the amount of millimeters of mercury. If the physician were to recommend a larger amount of millimeters of mercury, then you can turn it clockwise in order to increase the pressure of millimeters of mercury applied through the garment. For your recommended setting, you should set that to 40. You do have your power source switch here, which is currently in the off position. You always want to make sure your DVT Flowtron leg pump is placed in the off position prior to plugging into an electrical outlet for grounded electrical safety function. Right above your power switch, you do have a button which says single leg. The single leg mode will be used at any time if only one garment is to be used on the patient at any given therapy time. We do have our power cord plugged in to our electrical outlet. At this time, we will go ahead and power on to make sure we do have power. When powering on, your display will light up, as well as on the top of your unit, you may see a green light that will signify that there is power going to the control unit. If you do not have any display or your green light is not illuminated, you may want to check your power source for power and try a different outlet if needed. Once we do see we do have power, you can go ahead and turn off. To ensure proper use, your DVT Flowtron leg pump will need to be delivered with your tubing. In this case, your tubing is orange, and it does have male and female side connections. Your tubing is not disposable, so your tubing will always be picked up along with the machine upon pickup. You do have a reminder on your tubing as well, stating to do not discard, please return to central supply. You do have your two male sides, which will insert into your snap lock connectors on the side of your DVT Flowtron leg pump. You would want to insert one at a time and pushing it in until you hear it snap into place. Once you have pushed them both firmly in and hear the snap of the snap lock connector, you want to slightly pull to make sure they are securely connected. After that connection has been made, you will extend your tubing to be able to get to your female connection points on the opposite side of your tubing, and then get the appropriate garment, whether it would be your calf garment or your thigh garment, to be applied to the patient. In this example, we will use thigh garments. These here are your pair of thigh garments, standard size, up to 28-inch thigh circumference. If you look on the garment, you do have a cutout here on the garment. That cutout will always be placed behind the knee. And there is also a reminder on your garment in order to notify the user of which way the garment should be applied when strapping the patient's leg into the garment. When applying the garment to the patient, first you would want to extend the tubing out from the garment towards the bottom side. The tubing should run along with the garment down the back side of the patient's leg. You do have 5 velcro straps which will need to be opened in order to open the garment so the patient's leg may be strapped into position. You would align this area behind the patient's thigh, this section behind the knee, this section behind the calf. This would be down behind the patient's ankle area towards the bottom of the leg. You will want to take your side of your garment, wrapping over the side of the leg, making sure that it's snug and that it does not get kinked or wrinkled. And after the patient's leg is secured, you would want to take your velcro straps from the one side and velcro that to the top of the other garment, securing them in place. Once you have the top thigh garment section in place, then you may want to do the same action, wrapping the leg with the front of the garment, making sure it's securely wrapped, snugly, with no kinks, and then fold the other side over with your velcro straps to secure the patient's leg into the garment. If using both garments, you will use the same action and repeat the same process to add the other garment to the patient's leg. Once both garments have been applied to the patient, then you will need to use your other opposite ends of your female connections for your tubing to connect to that garment. Take your male and female connections with your snap lock connector, push it in until it snaps into place. Once you have checked to make sure your tubing is secured, your power source is properly plugged into the ground electrical outlet, your garments are wrapped correctly around the patient, thigh and calf if using a thigh garment, or calf only if using a calf garment. Connect your garments to your tubing. Make sure they're firmly connected there as well. Check your recommended setting of 40 millimeters of mercury with your control adjust dial. If everything seems to be correct, you may power on for the patient's therapy cycle to begin. At the current time, when you first initially turn on your DVT Flowtron Leg Pump, it will go through a test cycle which will test the inflation and deflation cycles to make sure your machine is functioning properly. After the cycle has been tested, then you will see your display go up as one garment is being inflated. As we previously spoke, your inflation time will be a total cycle of 60 seconds, where it will be approximately 12 seconds of inflation of your garment and approximately 48 seconds of deflation of the garment. And every garment will begin to inflate approximately 30 seconds after the prior garment deflates. So if you can see in this example, it has alternated legs a couple times. Now, if you did need to use only one garment for the patient, you will need to activate your single leg mode. When activating your single leg mode by pressing the button once, that will activate the amber light signaling that your DVT Flowtron leg pump single leg mode function has been activated. Once your single leg mode function has been activated, you may disconnect one of the tubings, preferably the lower one, in order to use only the single leg. If the action of removing your tubing from your machine by depressing your snap block connector to release your tubing is done without activating your single leg, you may get an error message on your machine. The error message on the machine will display high. If it does display high, HI, that will signify that you may have a disconnected tubing at the unit. We will show you that example as such. We will turn off single leg. Let it cycle through with one tubing disconnected to see if we can create the actual alarm code. As you can see, it has now displayed high alarm. The high alarm is displaying due to the fact that the hose is disconnected from the unit. In order to repair the alarm, you may plug your hose back into the unit and then waiting for your cycles to cycle through 2 cycles. Watch your display as it cycles through the 2 cycles and see if your alarm has gone away. Another reason why your display may read high alarm would be that your hose may be kinked. If the hose is kinked as such, okay, it may also give you a high pressure alarm. So your high pressure alarm may be caused to a disconnection of the tubing from the unit or to a kinked tubing. If you do show a low display alarm, LO, and we will try to disconnect the garment in order to show the example. If at any time you do experience a low, high, or F display, you may reference your fault chart located on the side of your DVT Flowtron leg pump unit. When your DVT Flowtron leg pump is not in use, it is best to make sure your power is turned off in the off position, as well as make sure to disconnect the garments and unwrap the garments from the patient's lower extremities. If your garments become damaged or broken, you may also get a low error message on your DVT Flowtron leg pump display. If you do experience a broken garment, you may contact Advocate Care Systems as well in order to have new garments delivered for the patient to use. Garments are single patient use only. You cannot clean the garments. They will be disposed of after the patient uses them. If your DVT Flowtron Leg Pump machine got soiled for any reason and you need to wipe down the machine, please use a damp cloth with a mild soap and water solution to wipe down the plastic surface. Please do not spray anything directly on top of the unit. After wiping it with a damp cloth, dry it with a dry cloth, and then you may place it away in storage until the next use.